Hello everybody! Welcome back to another Shadowverse Worlds Beyond video. And today we reach Master Rank! Yippee! So, I asked you guys earlier what video do you guys want from me right after I just got Master. And a lot of you guys said, yo Nero, make a Tierlist video. Right? So disclaimer, this is gonna be a very opinionated Tierlist. And the reason why I say that is because we can't really make a quote-unquote objective tier list, so I am not claiming any factual stuff about like my takes about the meta. I am not claiming any of that, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. If you guys are curious, I reached Master Rank mainly playing Abyss, Sword, and Forest. Like I play like all crafts, but I don't have as much experience on the other crafts, but those are the three crafts that I play. I'm not a one-trick whatsoever, but I did face every single deck on my way to Master. So based on that experience, I'm going to tier every single deck that I've met into a tier list. And let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the tier list that we made. And with that said, let's get right into the video. Alright, let's get right into the tier list. So over here, I didn't include every single deck known to mankind, but I did include most of the deck that I got to face in the ladder. So, in case you guys are wondering what these pictures represent, this is going to be Earth Runecraft. This is going to be Aggro Abysscraft, Aggro Abysscraft. This is going to be Aggro Swordcraft. This is going to be Ramp Dragon, the Garyu. The Gene is gonna represent Stormhaven. And Forte, as you guys might have guessed already, is gonna represent Face Dragon. Sir B is going to represent Mid-Range Abyss. Albert is going to represent Mid-Range Sword. Then Orchis for Puppet Portal. This Gundam, this Gundam image with this cut image of Gundam, and Lloyd is going to represent Hybrid. Kuon is going to represent Spellboost. Roach, of course, Forest, because you don't even run Arya anymore. And then Ralmia will be Artifact, because you don't run Ralmia in any other deck besides Artifact. Alright, let's get right into the tier list. So we're gonna go from lowest to highest. First off, I'm gonna just say it straight up. RITE Runecraft has to be one of the hardest things to win with in the game currently. And let me explain why. This is actually my most played Runecraft deck. And the reason why is because I really like Juno. I really like the effect of Juno. I really like her art. And I really like her in Shadowverse 1 as well. In case you guys were wondering, I actually have Runecraft as my second most played in Shadowverse 1. I have like more than 9 decks of Runecraft, but the current Spellboost Runecraft isn't really like my jam type of Runecraft. I like to use Spell Spore, so I decided, yo, maybe I could make RITE Runecraft work, and turns out it's kinda very bad. To put it very nicely, it's one of the worst decks in the game. Though the stats of the units of this deck is pretty good, right? You have a bunch of 3 mana 3/3s. You have super evolves that literally print like 7/7/8/8s, right? You have a decent amount of removal. A lot of the RITE cards are actually pretty good, and which is why you also see the RITE cards in the Spellboost deck. It's like, yeah, we're gonna talk about Spellboost later, but damn, they took our cards. Sadly, they took our cards and made their deck better. Oh yeah, like, what is missing from this deck is very simple. They don't have a consistent finisher. They can get tempo, right? They can get an advantage on the board, but they can't really finish the game. Typically, other decks manage to find a way to win by around turn 7 to turn 10. RITE falls off a cliff after turn 7. Next up, we have Aggro Abyss. Aggro Abyss, I'ma just be real, is very, very bad in the sense of, yeah, you can cheese maybe a Spellboost player, a Heavencraft player, you can cheese them perhaps, but you're better off playing Face Dragon at that point, because Face Dragon can cheese any deck, right? If we're ranking the cheese from cheesy, like a less cheesy to cheesy, yes. Aggro Abyss probably is the weakest in terms of, you know, aggro. That's gonna be tier 4 decks. So next up, we have Aggro Sword. Now, Aggro Sword, the issue with this is you really aren't good into control decks that don't break, right? It's like worst face dragon. Now, you're better than Aggro Abyss because you have more tokens, more reliable tokens. You can buff your units, and if they manage to not be able to deal with ambush like the squirrels, or maybe the Kagemitsu like got out of control, right? Or a luminous like one drop like goes out of control in the early game, not addressed. Yeah, you can cheese people like that. But since they don't have much like strength in the middle part of the game, where people suddenly throw out their super evolved, like strong super evolved cards like Orchis, Kuwon, right? Your Ralmia, your Cerberus, right? Your Jean. Yeah, Aggro Sword is kinda inferior, right? It's like break opponent or don't win type of thing. I played a decent amount of Aggro Sword because I really like Kagemitsu. But damn, is he bad this percent? Like holy, he's so bad. Like damn, like if you have to craft Kagemitsu, right? If you had to craft Kagemitsu because you like playing that deck, like I hope you get a refund or something, but because damn, that card is bad. Anyways, moving on. Ramp Dragon. Ramp Dragon is kind of in a weird spot too, because Ramp, while they will have games where they would pop off and they would seem unstoppable because they're like 3 mana ahead of you or something, and then you get Genesis Dragon. I think that they're so inconsistent just to be like as good as the tier 1 deck. So let me explain. There's no point, if we're being competitive, of course, there's no point in playing Ramp Dragon knowing that your early game curve is gonna have stop gaps because you have to use Dragon Oracle at turn 3, which is like which is not a dead play, right? If you have to skip a turn to cast Oracle Dragon, you lose so much tempo. The only like ramp card that maintains tempo or at least keeps you even is the 4-drop that like evolves on overflow. And yeah, like outside of that, I just think Ramp doesn't have enough ramp cards, doesn't have enough support yet to be able to dominate the ladder with the big dragons, right? I can see a future where Ramp Dragon will be better, but at the moment they're not. So yeah, they're gonna be tier 3, and we're gonna be moving on to tier 2, Stormhaven. So Stormhaven, I think, right, with the Lapis Wincon, with the constant board wipes, Stormhaven, I think is one of the best like cheesy classes at the moment. Because let me explain. For example, Manu will single-handedly kill Spellboost Runecraft because they can't target it with spells, so they have no ways of dealing with it, right? So it gets to snowball in the early game. Stuff like that they can do. They can board clear sword boards over and over again. They can set up OTK combos with the birds, with the griffin, with the ambush as well. If you can't deal with ambush, you're just gonna die to that at some point. It's not a matter of how you're gonna die, it's about when you're gonna die. Stormhaven has a lot of tricks up their sleeve, in my opinion, and they're not as inconsistent as like the other decks that we mentioned in terms of winning. Like if they break, and the opponent breaks as well, they still have a win con. The other decks don't. Yeah, the other decks don't. Right? If Ramp Dragon breaks, they're mid as hell. If like the aggro decks and Earthright, you know, like they break, they just can't play the game anymore. Meanwhile, Stormhaven, they're more of a setup reliant deck. I would say they're a lot better in terms of consistency. Though their peak, they're not gonna be in the tier 1. So yeah. Alright, moving on, we have Space Dragon. Space Dragon, I think, is the best cheese in the game. Straight up, the best cheese in the game. This is the only deck right now in the ladder where if they curve and you don't have an answer, you just straight up die, right? Against Portal Craft, if they brick, like they can heal, right? Of course, some matchups are gonna be easier than others. Like for Portal, like for Artifact, they can heal. But you know, like if you get the ball rolling, you can do like 8 damage a turn the moment you go Super Evolve, and you can still get cheesy retals with the Shard, right? Against Forest, one of the best decks in the game right now, the Forest Roach deck. Face Dragon literally steamrolls that matchup if they curve, because of the Otohime fan. Spellboost, same thing. Like Spellboost has this issue of being steamrolled in the early game. Heavencraft as well. Like if they don't draw their key amulets, right, they just get steamrolled by aggro decks in general, right? Puppet, I would say, like Puppet, especially hybrid, can deal with Face Dragon much easier because they have more tokens to contest the board. But like I said, the win card of Face Dragon is curve and brick. Curving on your side and bricking on the other side. Face Dragons over here, they're not a tier 1 because if the opponent doesn't brick, they just don't get to play the game at times. And finally, at tier 2, I know some of you guys might not agree with this, but hear me out. Abysscraft midrange. I think Abysscraft midrange is borderline tier 1, and that's because of one card. And you guys probably know what this card is already. Cerberus. Cerberus is legit one of the most broken cards in the game. It's one of the few cards that gets like both of the effects without super evolving. And if you super evolve, it doubles in effectiveness. So what does Cerberus do? It summons a token, right? Summons Coco and Mimi. One can heal you for 2, the other can deal 2 damage to the enemy's face. So you can choose to sack one of them and then super evolve and summon 2 copies of the one that you just sacked. Now, yeah, because that's how Reanimate works. So why is this card so strong and able to carry mid-range Abyss? Is because it's an HP swing for you in the way that you're healing, and it's also pinging the face while also clearing board, while also buffing the entire field. So if you have a setup with cemetery skeletons, it buffs everything. So you just have this big ass match swing where you drop a card for 8 mana, you clear the enemy board, you ping their face a bunch, you heal a bunch, and then you have a bunch of tokens right after. People complain about Orchis all the time. Bro, Cerberus is one of the best cards in the game. Alright? Those who know. But because Abysscraft right now does not have a lot of support, the other cards are kinda mid. So, what does mid-range Abysscraft rely on if they don't draw Cerberus? They're gonna probably stall out the game or try to cheese you with the aggro win con at times, maybe with serpents, maybe with mummy with Olivia, stuff like that. They would probably try to kill you that way, but those card combinations are not as strong as the competitive decks that we have at the moment. So without Cerb, Abyss is kind of doomed. Hopefully in the next set they give more cards that matter for Abyss so they can actually become a quote-unquote complete deck. So yeah. Alright, sorry about that. Like a little long on the Abyss craft. Like I just really think people are sleeping on this recently, on this craft. Right? This is also the craft that I used to get master at my final session. But yeah, we're gonna put this at a very fair tier 2. Right? If they get more support, I think they're gonna be tier 1. And speaking of tier 1, let's get right into tier 1. Mid-range sword. Mid-range sword, I think, is one of the most consistent decks because they are able to play the early game, the mid game, and the late game. Their late game Amalia, like their turn 8 to turn 10, if they manage to play 1 or 2 Amalias, their win rate just skyrockets because not every class is built to deal with Amalia. Right? Not everybody has a Jean in their deck. Not everybody has a William in their deck. Right? Not everybody can defend wide, basically. Not everybody can defend wide. And Sword is the best token generating like deck in the game. They can literally deal with board states without evolving or super evolving, so they can use their evolves instead to like push the tempo in their favor by a lot, or they could use their super evolve too. Albert, 12 damage at the face at turn 9. Alright? So, yeah, there's not much to talk about Sword. I just feel like Sword wins like a lot of matchups. There are some matchups where Sword, I think, would struggle a lot. One of them is probably going to be Heavencraft, because Heavencraft can just deal with their boards, right? Abyss kind of sucks, like versus the Sword, right? There's like Runecraft if they manage to like get a Fed William, right? Artifact can just deal with anything, but yeah, like Sword has a really good spread of matchups. They can win anything, right? They can win anything while also not being reliant on a cheesy strategy to win. Card value, like I would say, insane. So if you're looking to pick up a very basic craft and something that's like competitive, pick up Swordcraft. And speaking of simple, we have Puppet, like Portal Craft. So why is Puppet over here at tier 1 and not at tier 0? Because I actually think Puppet's matchups are not as consistent as the other version of Artifact, but we'll get to that later. Now, what's the issue with this deck compared to other decks though? While this deck has a lot of removal, like 0 mana rush removal, you have Orcus, you have Noah, you have Liam. Those cards are pretty insane. Now here's where the issue comes. If you don't draw double Orcus, or you just don't draw Orcus at all, and you're gonna rely on, let's say, Liam, the power level of the deck decreases by a lot. If they don't have that swing, and people realize that you don't have it, it's kind of like the similar problem with Abyss, where if they don't have serve, they're kind of mid. But the difference is Puppet Portal Craft at least has alternate game plan, where if they manage to drag the game long, because they have puppets to do that, they have Sylvia too, right? One of the best gold cards in the game, one of the best super evolved targets in the game as well, right? You can stall out the game for a different win con for Liam, but it will never be as good as Orcus. Yeah, based on the games that I played against Orcus, I mean, like the games I played against this deck, they only really win me when they get to play Orcus. If they don't get to play Orcus and they have to rely on Liam for them to win the game, they don't win as much. But hey, it's a meme by now already. Every single Puppet player has double Orcus on turn 7 plus coin into turn 8 or turn 9. Alright? If you manage to survive 2 Orcuses, I think you deserve to win. Or unless like they manage to save an evolve point for Liam. But yeah, you get the picture. That's the entire stick of Puppet. It's very simple as well. And yeah, if you just wanna like slab a really strong card, like similar to, you know, how I have a lot of fun playing Serbi, then you can pick up Puppet as well. It's much stronger, you get more bang for your buck, and it doesn't need a lot of legendaries. So yeah, that's cool too. Yeah, it's not like mid-range sword where you need like a million legendaries, right? And then we have hybrid Portal Craft. Alright, sorry, the image is kind of weird, but yeah, the hybrid Portal Craft. So what's the difference between Puppet and hybrid? The difference is the hybrid decks typically would run the artifact cards, but they won't run Ralmia. They would run instead Orcus and Noah. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So the game plan is for them to do Alouette, then maybe Beta? Like, typically that's what they do. They will do this thing where they would Alouette, Beta, or Gamma, so they maintain tempo, board presence tempo, right? They want to be able to swing at your face. And then they would, after they do Alouette, they would do Noah, because turn 6 is not really a strong turn for like artifact. So the best turn that they have for turn 6 typically is they would play Sylvia. Like Noah makes it so you don't have to use your evolve point to clear like 6 HP worth of damage. And if you are forced to evolve, then you will probably even out a board state where the enemy has tempo and you didn't coming into turn 6. Like, they have Gundam as well as a side quest, as a side win con, but it's still kind of like an Alot, or like Alot turn into Noah to buff the cards that you have. In between, you get enhanced puppets because you're hybrid, and then you'll play Orchis, and then your Orchis deals a lot more damage because you have the Noah puppets. And then after Rards, you either Orchis again or you like build your Gundam, and then you'll win from there. I think their consistency is not as great. Their game plan is very straightforward, so they're gonna be easier to read in terms of adaptability. If you manage to survive if you manage to survive their like barrage, I think they're easier to deal with compared to, you know, Artifact. Right? Because Artifact can do something, Artifact can just like do something very disgusting, which we'll discuss in a bit. So yeah. And finally, Spellboost Runecraft on tier 1. Now, you might be saying, yo, that's cap. That is absolutely cap. It's tier 0. Puppet is tier 0. Spellboost is tier 0. Sword is tier 0. I lose to these decks constantly. They're uninteractive. They're not fun to play against. Alright, let me explain. Spellboost Rune, I think should be here. Okay? Based on my experience. But, here's the thing. I looked at my replays and I'm like, damn. The games that I beat like Spellboost are literally just them low rolling, and the games that Spellboost wins is when they're high rolling, right? If they get the ideal amount of Spellboost, if they manage to get a bunch of dogs, they have to get multiple cool ones. So it's kind of like Puppet Portal 2 in the sense, but the difference is Spellboost like Rune doesn't have a strong early game. So if you manage to curve turn 1, if you manage to curve like turn 1 to turn like 5, and you have a good answer to Anne, yikes. Yeah, like yikes. They don't have like they're not strong at turn 5 to turn 6 if they don't have Anne. And even if they have double Anne, a lot of cards can deal with Anne. Like, we have a generic counter to Anne, which is Fildao, right? Where it's not really a direct counter, but it makes it so that you don't lose tempo while dealing with Anne and Greya. The annoying part about Anne and Greya is the fact that they have a free 5/5 ward that will be gone, but you'll have to stop hitting the face. They have healing, and they have a lot of stats after the fact that they managed to put down 2. So expect like 0 cost Shikigami, 0 cost dogs, a lot of stats on the board, really hard to deal with. And then after the fact that you had to spend all your resources dealing with their board, like they would drop a cool 110, or they would drop Kokitos and Dimension Climb. Now, why do I think it's not tier 0? But at the same time, I think that it's inching there. Simple. Inconsistency. Alright? Their peak is, I would say, one of the best peaks in the game. One of the best peaks in the game in late game. Nobody can contest Kokitos in Dimension Climb. D-Climb in Kokitos is very uninteractive combo. You can't deal with it. You can't, no deck can deal with it even at 20 HP, especially if they save a super evolve point. Kuwon can OTK if they manage to have 2. They just have everything on late game. The issue is their ability to get there is a question mark. So what I mean, like, it's not a sure thing they get to the late game. And if you don't agree with me with that, then you probably just don't know how to deal with like a lot of stats on the board efficiently. You get me? Alright. So, with that said, I think this this card is one consistency boost away from being tier 0. They are trying Earthright cards. They added Earthright cards like to the deck, and I've noticed that their early game is a lot better now because they have more tokens in the early game. They have the Earthright thing that can clear an enemy board, right? The heal card, right? They can also use that for board clear if they have an Earth Sigil. There's also this card where if they evolve, if you put them on the field and you have like 2 Earth Sigils, you can get a free evolve and deal 4 damage randomly, and since that's an evolved unit, you can attack immediately and you recover 2 play points. So that's big, right? Those types of cards that Runecraft has will significantly improve their consistency, but still not to the point where I will call them tier 0. Right, I might be wrong. I'm just saying, like I said in the beginning of this video, I might be wrong. Disclaimer, this is very opinion based. So yeah, I just can't put like this deck in the same tier as these 2 decks that I'm about to show you. And we're finally on tier 0, Forestcraft Roach. So, if you watched my recent video on the Roach video, right, the guide, the issue with this deck is like it's good in the early game. It attacks wide in the early game. It has a lot of removal in the early game. Alright? They have board wipes in the early game. Like, Glade can deal 9 damage to the board and draw a card without having to pay HP. It's also a craft where the evolve points don't mean as much. Lily can get the effect. Without evolving. Like, you literally use your evolve points to push for damage. You're not even using the evolve points for evolve effects. You're just using them for damage. So suddenly you have this craft where you have something that can aggro and something that can OTK in late game. It's a deck where you can kill as early as turn 6 and also kill somebody from 20 HP at turn 8 to 10. Especially with the recently discovered carbuncle combos. If you guys are interested in that, that's like the previous video that I uploaded. It's insane. 20 damage lethals while having access to wide boards, aggro. You have access to healing as well, right? Removals. So what's the weakness of this deck? If it bricks against Space Dragon, yeah, that's pretty much it. And another matchup is Sword, because while they have removal, they don't have Heavencraft type of removal in terms of dealing with a whiteboard. So maybe you Glade 1 turn and then they, let's say they do a Zirconia turn, the Sword player, and then Forest does Glade removes the Zirconia board, and then after that they do a Luminous Mage, and if they get to turn 8, they have a bunch of boards with Amalia. You get the picture. It's kind of hard to deal with a lot of ward tokens for a deck like the Roach Forestcraft. There is some deck getting developed and tested by Diane where they would use the Elder, right? But we're gonna talk about that in a different video. Like this Roach deck, I think is one of the best decks in the game. And yeah, if you're up for a challenge, a difficult deck, and you want to learn it, pick it up. And it's also free to play. Very, very free to play. All you need is 2 Olivias. 2 Olivias is probably in every account. I mean, not every account, but most accounts. Most accounts will probably have 1 or 2 Olivias. And Olivia unlocks kind of most of the decks in the game in terms of a legendary slot. So yeah, those are the only legendaries you need for this tier 0 deck. And yeah, there's nothing more to say. 20 damage combos before turn 9. Access to that is, to me, is nah man. At least have a weaker early game. Like Runecraft. But yeah. And then we have what I think is the best deck in the game at the moment. And it's Artifact Portal. Why do I think this is the best deck in the game at the moment? Simple. Consistency. I've talked about this a lot on my streams, and I'm gonna say it in this video. I think that Artifact is so good, not only because they're not really like badly statted cards. The effects are really good. Their evolve effects are good, like especially if you're a craft that has access to Sylvia, right? They can run Orchis too. That like the artifact deck runs like an Orchis, like 3 Orchises, right? Because they don't run Noah and all that, right? Like they just like slap Orchis and Ralmia together. Their consistency is insane because they don't really have to search for cards. They can just make them, right? So when those artifacts have cracks in their consistency, it's when they don't get Aluet, right? Aluet, Orchis, or Ralmia into a Gundam or something, right? That the odds of that happening with how much like artifact cards that they have, it's kind of insane. It's scary. It's scary. They have infinite options, right? While there's always like best in slot turns, their weaker quote unquote turns are not really bad, right? You can have maybe a UD turn, you can have a Sylvia turn, right? You can use the 5 mana spell that summons 2 temporaries, right? To either heal or clear the board or deal damage to the face. They can play aggressively with beta if you have Orchis in the hand. They can play defensively with healing, and they can also like summon double taunt with Ralmia if you chose to do that, maybe against Forest Craft, for example. Not that wall is as strong as they think it is, smiley face, right? They can also play to remove the Void over and over. So let's say against Sword, they have access to one of the most annoying amulets to the game, which is the cannon. The cannon would just like clear most token based decks, so there's that without using mana. Like I keep getting people in my chat like begging, yo, can we have fuse cost mana? And I'm like, yo, they're gonna be unplayable, but at the same time they need a cooldown on that amulet. It's kind of nuts. They have a good finisher in the late game with the aura 10-10, similar to Spellboost, Runecraft. They have good early game, right? Of course, it's not gonna be as good as Puppets early game, Swords early game, or Fairies like early game if they manage to draw like most of their fairy gens, right? But it's like good enough for them to be consistently competitive. Their early game is consistently competitive, their mid game is consistently competitive, and their late game is also consistently competitive. It's not about their peaks, it's about their consistency. And in a game like Shadowverse, consistency is king. And with that said, Ralmia is the most consistent deck in the game. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Sorry for yapping a lot. I'm just really having a lot of fun, like thinking about this, like scripting it and putting my thoughts onto paper. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me or you think a dumbass for having this take, right? Let me know what needs to be higher and needs to be lower. Just do know, right? Like, I don't think any of you guys are gonna be wrong. I just have my POV, my opinion about the current meta state. And you guys are free to have it too, alright? Okay, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day, everybody. Like and subscribe. Peace!